Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of the Foster family and a truly, case if I'm honest. Okay, let's go. Sin and Tonic! Sin and Tonic has reached 1,000 subscribers. So how exciting is that? So exciting that my eyebrows can't stop being itchy. So I just wanted to take a minute. I was going to do it at the end, but I'm going to do it now because I'm speaking about it. But just to say a huge thank you. I can't cry anymore. I've cried, so maybe she says that, like literally I can feel it. I can feel the eyes glazing. So I'd like to say a massive thank you to all of you, because this would not be anything, would it, if you weren't watching and enjoying and just being truly amazing. You're all wonderful. It's been emotional. I think the best thing to do is to carry on as per usual, making glorious Sin and Tonic videos every week. Without further ado, let's get into the story. This one got the old vein going quite a lot. We are going to Shropshire in England, and as I said, our story is about the Foster family, and that family consists of the father, Christopher Foster, the mother, Jill Foster, and their teenage daughter, Kirsty Foster. Christopher and Jill were 49-50, and their daughter Kirsty was 15. There's so many things that you can learn from this story, one of which is don't be a greedy one. Now, Christopher, he was a self-made millionaire, and what he did was clever thinking. In 1988, there was a very big explosion and fire on an oil rig called the Piper Alpha. This got Chris thinking about how the fire could have been stopped had the valves been kept intact, and then they would have been able to get turned off. Something very technical. I don't know anything about oil rigs. Anyway, so he invented something to protect the valves. Effectively, the fire on this oil rig, it killed 167 people on the rig. So just terrible. It inspired him to invent this product. He would call this product Ulva Shield. It piqued the interest of the big oil companies, and they wanted this product, but they wanted to know that it worked first, obviously. So they said to Chris, you must prove that your product does what it says on the tin, if you like. Chris put everything he owned at that point, and he wasn't rich at this point, but he mortgaged his home and things like that to create a test for his product. And luckily for Chris, she says, maybe not, it went incredibly well, and almost overnight Chris became a millionaire. He was getting money that it was thick, fast, overwhelming, a lot of money. It would see him become a millionaire very quickly, and I think at one point he was worth like £10.4 million. And this is back in the day, this is back in the dizzle. So that's a lot of money, and a lot of money to get quick as well. I always think that, like when you read stories about, people that win the lottery normally, they win these huge amounts of money. It's just, I mean, the other day, it was the Euro Millions, I think, was 168 million pounds, English pounds. 168 million pounds. So if one person wins that, like, what the hell? 168 million. I spoke to Paul about it. I was like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's just... You can't even. What would you do? Other than all the huge. But then, and this is where I think it messes people up, because you'd have a jolly good time spending all, getting like everything you could ever dream of. And then what? Like, I mean, I think I'd be all right. I think I'd be one of the people that's totally okay with it, to be honest. But I think some people find that it just takes any purpose out of their life. I don't know what happens. Why are we on this subject? But 168 million. What are you going to do with that? That's just not fair. That's just too much. Too much for one person. Would be fun though at first, wouldn't it? Anyway, and that is exactly what happened here with Chris, because it was fun at first. He bought a mansion called Osbaston House. Change that name. It sounds harsh. Osbaston. No, I don't like that. I'd have to call that something else. Something pretty. Osbaston. Big old mansion as well. It was on 16 acres, had many outbuildings. He got himself a tractor, as you do, 16 acres. They bought horses for their daughter Kirsty. So I think there were 3 horses. They had 4 dogs. And Jill owned doves, loved her doves. Unusual choice, but doves nonetheless. Bought some flashy ass cars, seriously. I think there were 4 or 5. I think, a Porsche. Was there a Ferrari? Gotta be. Fancy. 4x4. All the usual. He had all of the grounds in the house sort of landscaped, so it's all pretty and nice, and spent a good fortune on kitting out the house with antiques and, expensive, exquisite furniture. He also enjoyed a rather expensive hobby, and it was expensive. So it was clay pigeon shooting, and also I think actual bird. Again, I don't know. I should have Googled, but I think one of is clay pigeon. I've got to Google now. Okay, yeah, I thought I was right. So the clay pigeon shooting is like they send up a fake pigeon of clay and you shoot that. It's like target practice. But he was also into the real deal, the hunting of animals. He would think nothing of spending £8,000 on a 3-day hunting trip every week, every single week, eight grand. And he was a competitive person. He had to win. He liked to win. That was important to him. But this expensive lifestyle, it would spiral. It would spiral out of control. Also, to note, he had 8 mistresses, it was said. 8. Who has the time? Jill's sister would say he was no looker, but money did all the talking. So he was flashing the cash, and they were there for that. It was also thought that Jill was having affairs as well, and somebody close to the family said, they described their relationship as an open relationship, but I only saw that in one source, so take that with a pinch of salt, if you will. Christopher thought a lot of himself, and he had an image to uphold, so when the spending was really more than he was actually earning, that didn't stop him or make him rein any of this in. No, he just thought too highly of himself. This was the lifestyle that he had become accustomed to. Behind closed doors, it wasn't a paradise at all. He was described as a narcissist, a volatile man that was really quick to anger, very controlling and very difficult to live with. It was said that Jill would avoid him at all costs if he was in a bad mood, and a source would say that there was one occasion when they know that he had hit Jill. Last thing this knob ever needed in his life was a gun, but he owned many. He had spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on guns, and they were prominent in the house. So the housekeeper would say that there was always a gun in the kitchen, like a shooting gun. I don't know what they're called. What are they called? Rifle? Shotgun? Shotgun, probably. And there was always one in the dressing room, so upstairs in the dressing room. On one occasion, he took the family pet. There was a 5 dogs at one time, and it was a Labrador that was not very well behaved. It was fussing around the sheep in a nearby field, being a menace. So he took it and he shot the pet. It was a pet, it wasn't a working dog, even though that's grim as well. And also, and I think these things say quite a lot about his personality. The doves, the doves, the birds, they would sometimes get into his garage and poo on his beloved cars. Beloveds. So if he ever found a dove in the garage, just shoot that dead. What noise was that? Was that a gun? Not a good one. Then it almost makes me really happy, the next part of the story, but it's not at all because it leads into some horrific horribleness. But he was a really rubbish businessman and a bit thick. Some of the things you're really? For example, he never paid tax. He never declared the income or anything, and just kind of just thought he was above it. We just won't declare it. Good one. In 2003, he signed a deal with a company called DRC and gave them the exclusive exclusive rights to make his invention, to make it and to sell it. And then this is where the greedy part comes in, because rather than cut costs, rather than maybe live in a slightly smaller mansion, sell a tractor, I don't know, sell a car, you've got 4, 5, do you know what I mean? Sell one of your 3 horses, anything. Rather than give anything up, any of his possessions, he very stupidly went to another company and sold them the rights to his product. Well, of course, the other manufacturer is going to find this out quite quickly as well, because they're not stupid. Someone else is selling the product that they have exclusive rights to. Let's be honest. What was that about? Just greed, pure greed. And thickness. I'm going to say, I think he was stupid. Anyway, the vein. DRC are like, no, and they sue him. They sue his ass. Literally, no, sir, you can't do that, obviously. The judge in the case, get this, I don't know, I almost felt like it was a little harsh, but they gave the rights, they signed the patent over, so they signed his invention over to DRC, so they then owned it. They owned the patent, which is and the rights, got everything. He was out of the game. Bye. Like, he literally had invented it, and they were just like, and so from then on he saw nothing, no money. He was cut out. And just such a greedy toad. Because also at the same time, he wasn't paying tax. Also at the same time, his accountant that was trying to do his best said, we must declare your income. We must do this. You're not doing this correctly. This isn't right. And then he reported him. So it's all going down the pan. As it should do, because he's being a douche. The accountant reports him to the Inland Revenue for tax evasion. Well done. This guy was just consumed, wasn't he, by consumerism, materialism, egotistical, just all of the bad words. All of the financial things that were going on meant that his company went into liquidation, and his assets were frozen. Again, I don't know. I don't understand what I'm actually saying, but that's what happened. Not a good position to be in. He owed about £1 million for the tax. He now had less than zero. So in 2004 he was worth 10.4 million, and in 2005, a year later, he was worth minus 2.8 million. What the hell? I mean, that's impressive. And this is where he possibly took a little step over to the dark side. There were rumours that he was engaged with the Russian mafia, who a bit of shady, dodgy dealing going on. These are just rumours. Whatever the case was, there was a marked change in his behaviour. He started carrying a gun at all times. He had a handgun, all times. And he had CCTV put up around the mansion. So now I'm thinking, Russian mafia maybe. Mafia? The Russian mafia. Mafia. What? No, wait. Now I don't know what word is right. The mafia. Yeah. Installed electric gates. So very, well, again, with the words. Oh, suspicious. Is that the word? Suspicious. Paranoid. That's the word. He also became a recluse. He stopped leaving his mansion, to be fair. Get your shopping delivered, invite your favourite people round, now and then. I wouldn't need to leave. I digress. So Christopher was spending most of his time on his tractor, literally pottering around. He kept on a housekeeper, and I think other than that, he was maintaining the property and the grounds. I mean, he had nothing else to do. And of course, all of the financial business was all kept a secret from his wife Jill and his daughter Kirsty, so they were none the wiser. In fact, no one was. He remortgaged his house 3 times. Just debt to the eyeballs. Is that the phrase? Debted up to the eyeballs. And some. This eventually just took its toll on Chris's mental health. So he went to see a doctor in 2008 because it was just too much for him. He was struggling, and he said he was depressed. He said he was having suicidal thoughts, and they put him on antidepressants. Fab. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with antidepressants. What I'm saying is, what about the suicidal thoughts? I don't feel like, surely there should have been something else in place at that, like, oh, just wait and see for a few weeks whether this medicine will help you with your current suicidal thoughts. That doesn't feel safe or right, does it? Did they not take it seriously? But you would want to hope that if you go and see a doctor and say that you are thinking about killing yourself, that they would take that seriously. Around this time, there were 3 incidents where he spoke to different people about committing suicide. He spoke to an old work associate and said to them that he was thinking of shooting himself and that could they look after his wife and his kid. This was not taken seriously again. He also confided in another associate, so they're always called associates and not friends. I don't think he had friends. He wasn't nice. Like I say, you reap what you sow. So he spoke to another associate and said that things weren't looking good for them, and that just weird comments about the house and possession, saying that they're not going to take anything from me. I'm not going to let anyone take any of my stuff from me, and they'll carry me out of that house in a box. Yeah, worrying. And they also brushed this off. Chris wasn't particularly close with family. His own brother, hadn't seen him for 16 years. In August of 2008, this is where it starts to get spicy, guys, because his housekeeper found a letter or a note attached to the gate, front gate, electric gates. She took it up to him, and it was a bailiff's notice saying that the house was going to be repossessed. I mean, it was only a matter of time. He probably owed everything that he had. So it was likely they would have taken the lot. He spent the rest of the day on his computer looking at sites about suicide and flicking through old family photographs. We then reached the bank holiday weekend in August 2008. The family were invited to a barbecue and a clay pigeon shoot. And this was an annual sort of barbecue event. At this event, Chris seemed perfectly normal, happy to everyone around him. And Jill wanted to stay, but Chris, he'd had enough and he wanted to go home. And whatever he says goes, basically, it sounds like. So off they go home. They arrive, I think I said off they go. Very posh. They arrived home at about 8:45. Now, handily, the old CCTV surveillance that Chris has put onto the property himself would prove vital in this case. At some point after they arrived home, Jill went to bed, and at 11:30 it would seem that Kirsty was in bed because she was, I think, on her computer in her room or on her phone, something like that. She was on Messenger, but she was in her room. She was away from her dad. At midnight, Chris turned the internet off, and then there was a message found on Kirsty's phone, I believe it was, saying like, oh, my dad's turned the internet off. I'll speak to you tomorrow, night. There wasn't any CCTV in the house, so we don't know exactly the movements after that. But at about 3:09 a.m, Chris is seen on the external CCTV with a rifle with a silencer on the end, and he's walked out of the house, and he's walking past the sort of garages, and you can see the stables in the background. It is thought that just before this point he has shot his wife and his daughter in the back of their heads while they were sleeping. He then goes to the stables. He shoots all 3 of the horses in the head. He then rounds up the 4 family dogs. He puts them into their kennels, and he shoots each dog in the head in their kennels. He then takes all of their bodies, the stables, to the barn where the horses are. He even went round and shot all of the ducks and the chickens that were on the property. We then see on the CCTV him get into the horse box van thing. He drives that to the drive, the very front, like where the electric gates are, and he parks it there, takes the keys out, and then he shoots all 4 of the tyres. So he's sort of barricading the house, but no one can get in. At 3:34 on the CCTV, we see him with hoses and pipes and things, and he pumps oil through these hoses and pipes into the basement of his house. He then sets the stable on fire, the garage on fire, and then his house. He goes into his burning house, he lays down on the bed next to his dead wife and waits to die. He eventually did die from smoke inhalation. At 4:11 a.m, neighbours see the flames, and it was epic. I'll share some photos. He used, I think they estimated like 200 gallons of heating oil. So he had a supply of oil to heat the home, and he used, a lot. He knew what he was doing. The horse box just stopped the services from getting anywhere near. Not quickly. They couldn't get in very quickly at first, which is, that was the design of it. And when they did, it was such a ferocious and fierce and like fire that they couldn't get near to the house. They couldn't even get very near to attempt to, they did their best. It took 3 days and 12 crews to get the fire out. The following day, bailiffs arrived at the house, none the wiser. They arrived to take everything, and Chris had made sure that there was absolutely nothing left. It was quite a tragedy and quite a difficult time for their families because it wasn't known at first what had actually happened. And this rumour had circulated about the Russian mafia. And so they the police put out a nationwide search for the family because they hadn't found their bodies. They felt like, and it looked like it, didn't it, that this was a statement, like this was the work of people that wanted to send a message and that the family might have been abducted, So they were quick to sort of like put something out to say, like, have you seen this family? So for days, their families, like Chris's family and Jill's family, they weren't even sure if they thought they might be alive and that they'd been abducted. It was only when the building was safe enough to go into, a photographer, like a crime scene photographer, went in, and he was standing. I mean, the house was destroyed, and different floors had sort of burnt everything. I mean, carnage. He was standing and he felt something. He described it as spongy. Whoa. He felt something spongy underfoot, and lo and behold, it was the bodies of Jill and Chris. So it obviously took a minute to identify their bodies. It wasn't a quick process. From how they found the bodies sort of like amongst springs, and it was obvious that they had fallen through the floors, like the fire had taken hold and they'd fallen through, and they were on a mattress. And when they, the floor plan of the house, they'd literally come through from their master bedroom. So they were still entwined, the bodies. So Chris had gone to bed, laid down with his dead wife and embraced her. When they found their bodies, they also found the charred rifle next to them with the silencer on. Sadly, it would be another couple of days until they found Kirsty's body. And when I say found her body, nothing was like, the fire had damaged things so badly, and their bodies had fallen through different floors of buildings, and rubble had fallen. So it wasn't a very pleasant task. It was almost like they had to sift through charred rubble of the building to find pieces of their bodies. Grim. They never found the entire skull of Chris or Kirsty. They found enough of Kirsty's skull to show that she had a bullet wound in the back of her head. They just found that. but they didn't with Christopher, so it was inconclusive. However, his brain was there was no damage to his brain, so highly unlikely that he had shot himself. Also, it was a massive rifle shotgun thing with a silencer on the end, so really hard to like maneuver to shoot yourself. As with many families, there were some secrets. There were some dark secrets in the family as well, which all came to light. Christopher's brother, Andrew, who he hadn't seen for 16 years, Andrew would say that Christopher had sexually abused him as a child. And this was one of the reasons that he hadn't seen his brother for 16 years. Can you blame him? He also said that as a child, Christopher was obsessed with fire. Oh, what's the word? Do you remember where I got it wrong, didn't I? I'm Googling it because I got it wrong last time and everyone was like, oh, and I've learned, haven't I? Have I learned anything? Because you told me in the comments. So fire starting, obsession with fire. What's that called? You're all sitting there going, I'm a fire starter. Why is it? Don't know. That's not what I want. Just a fire starter. Oh. No, I want obsession with fire, not fire starters. Pyromania. The minute I read it, I was like, oh yeah, pyromania. Type of impulse control disorder characterised by people unable to resist starting fires. Well, sounds a bit like that, matey boy was a bit liked a fire, basically. So much so that his mother and father gave him the nickname Little Nero. I had to Google that. I will confess. I was like, what? Why? What? I felt stupid. But he was again, I'll get it up so I get it right. Thank God for Google, yeah? Great Fire of Rome, right? So, Nero, matey boy, history was Sophie. On the 18th of July, 64 AD, a fire broke out and swept across Rome, ravaging the city for over 6 days. Christ. Legend states Emperor Nero fiddled. Oh, as in fiddled, like a, what's that? Violin. While the city burned before him. Oh, people thought that bad enough that he rejoiced in the fact that the city was burning. They thought he actually had been the cause of the fire themselves. So that is why matey boy was given the nickname Little Nero. What a nickname. Like jovial as hell about it, it seems. Like, and really just, wouldn't you be crapping your pants? Come on now. Apparently there was an occasion where Christopher accidentally set his brother Andrew on fire. Not worried about this behaviour whatsoever, no, just Little Nero. On the 19th of December in 2008, the family were laid to rest. At the request of Jill's family, Jill and Kirsty were buried together at the same time in one funeral, and they were placed in the same grave but in separate coffins. Chris had a separate funeral, which was later on in the day. He was also buried in the same churchyard but not in the same grave. And I really struggle with these cases. I really do, because the whole family annihilator situation, if you're going to go out, do you? Yeah, you're your own person, make your own choice. And if that's what you choose for you, like, it's tragic and it's awful when someone takes their own life. I'm not disputing that. As a parent, I can't, whatever it is that drives them to do it, it's something bigger than being a parent. How can you kill your own child? And what is it? What is that thing? Because is it your ego? Because with this, he chose to destroy everything rather than lose it. He chose to destroy everything rather than lose it. I can understand him loving material possessions, that being what he's all about, having a big ego, like being too ashamed. I can understand all of that. I can understand like a bit of that to the government. Like, you're not having any of this. Like, not myself, but I can understand that thought process of him. Like, no, this is mine. No one's taken it, and I will destroy it before you can take it. I can get my head around that. I'm trying to work out where I can't. Think it's the kid. And I found it interesting, the fingers out, that he murdered his wife and his daughter in the exact same fashion in which he murdered the horses and the dogs and the animals in the house and on the grounds. I found that interesting and quite telling, I think. Did he see his wife and his daughter as his possessions? Was this purely, you will not take anything of mine, and if I can't have it, no one can? No thought for them as individual people with their own lives, futures. 15 years old. And I think the thing I can't wrap my head around, sorry, I've just been nattering to you about how, because I wanted to get to the bottom of it, and now I think I have. I think what I can't get my head around is that moment where you look at your sleeping child and you can go ahead and do it. So whatever it is that makes that happen, that makes that your choice, has got to be like so huge. It's bigger than any maternal, paternal instinct in your body. It's bigger than that, and that blows my mind. That's the bit I don't get, because it's like, what can be bigger than that? What can be bigger than that feeling? And in some cases, I think so. You think, oh, evil. And for some reason, with Family Annihilators, it's not so much evil. It's like, I don't know. It's just so broken, isn't it? It's just like incomprehensible. Clearly. Anyhow, that is all I have for you on today's case. Truly terrifying. Honestly, it twists me up. In my head, I'm just like, but I don't like not understanding how I feel about it, or what my thought is about it, you know? Anyway, thanks for listening while I waffled. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of Sin and Tonic. I hope you can join me next week for another true crime story in a glass or a vase or a mug or a jug or a hug of gin. There is nothing much to add this week because I have just been in a bubble of excitement and overwhelm, and it's been glorious and terrifying and lovely. But yeah, so that's just been me. I've just been very excited. Nothing much has gone on. The kids are on holiday, so it's quite chilled out. Not been getting out of bed until like 9 in the morning, which is lush. I love you all. I'm going to go and eat some peanut M&Ms because they're calling me. And oh look, I'm in yellow like a peanut M&M packet. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you all in the comments. I love you lots. Have a beautiful weekend, and thank you so much. 1,000 freaking sinners. Yes, baby. Let's go. Love you.